and welcome back to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. And today we are revisiting one of my favorite clients, a company who we've known for some time, and another business that has been listed in the Financial Technologies magazine's listing of the most influential fintechs of 2021. Back in the summer of last year, we were delighted to bring Brian Hunt of Cloud9 Technologies onto the show. And today, we're delighted to bring into you David Midgett, the CTO of the same company, Cloud9 Technologies. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Toby. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. And listen, it's a company I've been looking at for a long time now, and it's been one of phenomenal growth. And I think what I've always loved, and particularly over this last year, has been speaking to companies who've added real value over the course of the last year. And when I spoke to Brian last summer, it was a story of a business there that was, I guess, sort of really well positioned to provide solutions to the problems that everyone was having. And as a result of that, the business was moving from strength to strength and growing in all sort of areas, and things were going well. I believe that that's continued as we go through. So we'll come on to all of that in a minute. But before we do that, David, give us a little bit of a background about yourself, if you would, and the story of Cloud9.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been with Cloud9 since fairly early days, so about 4+ years. My background is really in building out large-scale platforms on the internet and SaaS services. So I'm really a builder, and that's what I've been focused on since I got here. Definitely a long way, both in terms of expanding global presence and in terms of the product and getting it to meet all the requirements for voice trading for tier ones or institutional banks. But my experience with scale, resiliency, global performance is really, I think, key driver in making sure that this product can meet the needs of our customers.
And those needs of those customers shifted a fair amount, I'd imagine, over the last year or so. And as a CTO, I guess one of the things that can create is an awful lot of stress. We've seen a seismic shift in the marketplace, and with that, and when it's a business that's as customer orientated as Cloud9, I imagine that comes with a fair amount of responsibility to make sure you're adapting and listening to those customers and making sure you're providing solutions to the specific and very quickly changing problems that all of them face, particularly in the voice trading world. Tell me a little bit about the speed of change and the speed of technological innovation that you need to adapt to.
Yeah, I think this is a disruptive technology. So we've come into a market that's largely been traditional trading turrets and private wires, and it's one thing that really attracted me to join Cloud9. But there's a lot we have to listen to, so we really need to hear the needs of our customers, and it can vary whether it's a broker, buy side, or tier one bank. So those are a lot of the drivers. I think you have a lot of tier ones that are talking about moving all of their workloads to the cloud and all of their compute, and a lot of what's driving that is the data, the access to the data, the ability to analyze it, and now even more so than ever, the ability to work remotely, to work from anywhere. So pre-COVID, we were focused on a lot of those trading features, workflows, and voice functionality, and we certainly had to pivot. I think as we came into the pandemic, we had to be nimble. There was a lot of work to do. Not only did we shift our own company to 100% remote overnight, but we had a lot of our own customers that were scrambling to do the same thing. But given we're already a cloud platform, that's inherent to what we do. So we did a lot of work with scaling. We did a lot of work to onboard new firms. I think in the first couple months, we grew 50% of our user base. So that certainly created, a lot of work for the teams. But then also coming out of that, we had a lot of things that we needed to listen to as well to make our product even better for remote users, better for being able to have access to data anywhere, and so on.
I love the focus of that, the listen to our customers as opposed to tell our customers. And I think that's been a feature of the businesses that I've seen certainly over the course of the last year who've really thrived. Are those who are listening. Look, you used the word pivot there, that has various different reactions when people say it in the tech world, right? Pivot is either we've got this wrong and we're having to change, or we have, and I think this has probably been I think probably 18 months ago, pivot was a wrong strategy. Right now, It's when, when you had your strategy wrong and you're trying something else. Right now, I think when you use the word pivot, you're talking about something there which is adapting to a very rapidly changing customer problem set that allows you to provide a solution in line with what you want to do, but answering very specific problems. And when you're sat there talking about customer needs and talking about listening rather than telling, I think that's probably been one of the great reasons why you guys have thrived so strongly over the course of the last year, alongside this very sort of clear institutional shift to the cloud, which I think has been really interesting, right? Because there's been a decade of almost resistance to cloud technology within the FS space, or certainly difficulty getting around legacy systems that are embedded in their enterprise systems. And I love the fact that this has been a sort of accelerant to cloud technology within the FS markets. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen and the your view of the rapid acceleration of cloud technology in the space and what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I see the leadership in tier one banks are being more vocal about this, about moving all of their data to the cloud. I think the ability to analyze that data, have the access, use AI, it becomes a competitive advantage. This is really, I think, accelerated. It does take a mind shift or mindset change and some resolve to actually do that, to take your systems that maybe have been reliable running on-prem and migrate them over. But really, once you start doing that, you see there's so much more inherent value to the cloud. There's the global resiliency. There's scale that's really difficult to replicate on your own. And I think that, was accelerated by COVID. I think, certainly for any that were hesitant, it became the fuel to sort of tip them over that pivot point, as you mentioned. So that's been, really great to see. Over 10 years, it's been a very large change on that time frame. In the last year, I think I've seen more adoption and embracing of the cloud as really being ready, really being the best strategic advantage for firms. So to me, that's really been great to see that mind shift over time.
Do you think it would have happened without this? Do you think that it would have, do you think we'd be still waiting another 5 years for the penny to drop, or has this been, I struggle to say this any more empathetically than sort of like a necessary evil for tech advancement in this space?
I don't think the pandemic specifically, was the biggest driver. I think everybody already recognized it. It was really, taking the resolve to do it. And it certainly had an accelerating effect, but we were, already in a lot of different projects with different tier ones to look at their systems, to look at how to migrate them. And, I think we were just well positioned at a time when the need increased. So I think that was a big factor. But it's, I think it's a natural progression. This is a bit of a disruptive technology for voice. And I think everything just sort of came together, at a time when we were able to really help people out and keep their businesses flowing and efficient when they're suddenly, going from trading floors to living rooms and virtual trading environments. So
bedrooms. I've seen everything on this show over the last the last year or so. We've been in bedrooms, garages, front rooms, kitchen tables, everywhere in between. It's been a very different world, hasn't it? The other thing we were talking about with Brian on a show where he came alongside Oliver Blower at VoxSmart and Travis over at Ventus Systems as well, where we were talking a lot about the sort of advancement of interoperability and the importance of regulatory and regulatory technology and security and everything that was happening in that space as well. That as a person in your position as a chief technology officer, you mentioned it earlier on as well. There is an awful lot of complexity around the regulation that would have happened, particularly around voice trading solutions that we've seen over the course of the last year. As a CTO in a business that saw that sort of volume of increased traffic and workload and everything in between, tell me a little bit about how you've managed that and some of the sort of issues and opportunities that you found over that period as well.
We are the largest fully cloud-based voice trading platform for regulated users. So that's really a key thing in meeting tier one requirements, is that we have the data capture, that we have the ability to make sure that calls are being recorded, to make sure they have the metadata to find those recordings. But on top of that, we have a rich source of data that they can ingest through our APIs. And that helps both from compliance and surveillance standpoint, but also it helps for them to analyze the data to get competitive advantage, to see their own trading platforms and productivity of their traders. So I think that's one of the things we offer. And we've already had the support for all the trading call flows and messaging types, from shout downs, ring down, intercom, dial tone. The fact that everything we offer is delivered over the cloud, it's a global solution, it's login anywhere. We do have compliance regulations that we have to help our customers meet throughout the world, and those can vary. So that certainly is some complexity, but that's something that we've been working on since the company really started. So I think we've been ahead of the game there. I think we've been ready for that. And for regulated users, we support both on-prem and cloud-based capture, depending on what the customer needs. For voice data, the trading intelligence that offers, I think, surpasses what was really possible before with legacy trading platforms. The ability to integrate that data with back office systems or their own, data warehouse or data sciences departments to get competitive advantage is a big one. The other things we have is really high voice quality. So that's also great for the end user, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities for data mining, just because the ability to transcribe high quality voice data is a lot easier than transcribing legacy voice recordings. So that's another big driver. But ultimately, implementation is lightweight. We check the boxes for all the regulatory, compliance, disaster recovery requirements. And if a firm's looking to be nimble with a voice solution, this really is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think that's when you talk about that sort of, I think you mentioned before, competitive advantage and the need to be nimble. These are customer specific issues which have gained greater weight over the last 12 months than perhaps ever before. Always important, but now thrust more to the forefront. When you've been spending that time listening to customers, and I know that will come through your account managers and customer success teams through to you to be translated and dealt through. What are some of the sort of key themes that people have been saying that they need that help with, and how have you guys sort of positioned yourself to innovate and provide those solutions? What are some of the steps you've taken?
Okay, yeah. So one of the things we started working on even before the pandemic was improved workflows to support buy-side workflows, and also ease of using the interface itself, but also the ability to have remote control of the interface through a more turret-like user experience. So that helps with adoption. What we've done with that is we have developed the new version of C9 Trader Stratus that really gives a lot of new ability to customize workflows, to make it much easier to do complex call types. And with the Cloud Hub, we have a USB solution that's plug and play. It's a low cost device, which is optional, but it has extremely high voice quality. You have speakers, microphone, you have the ability to have a turret-like experience. So it really makes that transition, whether you're going from a trading floor to home with this device, very seamless. So that's one of the ways that we've answered that call from our customers. The other is support for things like VDI, not only in the office, but remote VDI support for things like Citrix, so that if people are doing a hybrid between part-time on the trading floor, part-time at home, that we have a fairly seamless user experience. That's been another, big ask for our customers. It's been, a lot of development work for that as well. But that's two of the areas that we've been focusing on for the last 6 months.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I love that sort of ability, as you say, to have things there which are taking on board, serious issues and thinking about how you can accelerate those those solutions to them in such a nimble way. You mentioned as well about the sort of fact that we're talking from bedrooms and spare rooms and living rooms and home offices, etc. As all of that sort of thing, and I think you intimated earlier on that as your customers are all getting used to working from home, you seamlessly moved into it yourselves. seamlessly moving into it is I think in tech companies been something which has been relatively normal over the course of the last year. So it wasn't the biggest change that anyone had. But to take on the increased volumes and grow your teams in a hybrid manner in some instances, or completely remotely in others, there's been challenges that I think people have got particularly right. And I know that you guys have grown and expanded within that. As a leader of a technology team, I imagine some of whom you still may not have met so far. And you talk specifically as well about a globalized team, where I know this is an international operation for you. Talk to me about some of the challenges you've enjoyed there, because as a CTO, I think this is sometimes underestimated about the size and scale of the challenge. It sort of almost gets forgotten a little bit. But with the increase in flow and general busyness for you, plus a completely different way of working, tell me how you specifically have adapted to all of this.
Yeah, I think we do have an office where all of our key people work and collaborate. We already were positioned to work remotely, so that was more of just immediate change in location. That wasn't really the hardest thing. I think initially there was some concern we'd lose productivity. What we actually saw was a little more the opposite. I think in a lot of ways, with the immediate challenge of scaling out the platform with some of the immediate needs of the customers, we were able to focus really well working remotely, and we were able to communicate internally really well, in part because we use our own product. We've been using our own product. So with the Cloud Hub or C9 Trader, I can push a button and I can immediately be talking to anybody that I work with. We all run the application. We have layouts a lot like traders would. So that really helped create a feel of still being connected. And I think the fact that we already were used to doing that made it very natural. So I think certainly there were challenges, but I think on that front, I feel like we did really well. The other challenges were really, immediately scaling. So as I mentioned, we grew 50% in just a couple of months. So we had a lot of, late nights and a lot of time with our DevOps and cloud engineering department to scale the systems out. Fortunately, we are cloud-based products. We're hosted in the cloud. So we were able to do that very quickly by leveraging, the resources and the scale that the cloud has. So while it was a lot of work, we had the right tooling. We had really great people and a really great dedicated team. So we were able to rise to meet that challenge.
I think that's a really important part of what you said there, and I'm glad you did say it because I think that fact of having a really great team has been so important. And I look at what I call the golden threads of those companies, and I've spoken to and analysed and read the review in the magazine and what people were writing in the Financial Technologies for all of the companies that were linked into those most influential companies. And my job over the last year has been to really talk and discuss and understand some of the challenges of businesses that they've been going through in technology companies over the last year. And overwhelmingly, the ones that have been, I guess, the best position to thrive, to grow, have been those who've been able to rely on a trusted team and then bring real talent into their team. And this has been a good time, actually, to be able to acquire and bring good talent into sturdy, successful and growing businesses at the same sort of time as well. Talk to me about your people and how you guys have managed to get that so right over the years, because it isn't a long-term enterprise established business. This has been a company I've tracked for some time, had a great start to life and done that by hiring consistently well. Talk to me about the team and how you've managed to do that and keep and retain a really strong unit that's allowed you to thrive over this period.
Yeah, I think the culture and the quality of management, really started at the beginning with the founders. So Steve Kammerer, Leo Papadopoulos, Jerry Starr, they started the company and they really know voice trading. They know the industry. They understand the criticality and they understand the call flow. So I think that was an advantage, but also it's the culture that they bring. So I joined a company that I felt had a real culture, real family type of feel. It was, smaller but growing. And I think, we've hired a lot of good people. We have a lot of very dedicated engineers that are talented, both in the UI side and the media side, to create the kind of audio quality that you need for a trading floor. And even down to sales, professional service, like it's just really a company that is close knit and has a really solid work ethic. So
Yeah.
that's really, what, like we said, that's one of the core the things that's needed for a company to be successful. You've got to be aligned. You've got to have good communication, and that's, I think, also the key to being remote is you have to have that communication. Part of that does come with relationships. That part's a little harder, I think, for new people coming in. But we tried very hard to kind of to instill that even in the joiners that came in the last year. So I think that's
Tell me how you've done that, because I've spoken to various different people who've done that in various different ways, and it has been the challenge, right? And even growing now in our business and bringing people into the company, we're constantly trying to make sure that we give them that best experience. And I think you're right there about those relationships and having good relationships and trusted teams beforehand. Putting people into it is an interesting part. And I've been speaking to a number of different companies now who have got more people who have joined post-pandemic than pre, who may still not have met everyone, which is an extraordinary thing to think about sort of 12, 14 months after this has happened. And companies, I think, have been marvelously innovative in that communication and in that relationship building and that culture building, which I think is really, really difficult in times like this. And I've heard it done in so many different ways. Can you give me some examples of how Cloud9 have, because I do think you're right. And every time I've had anything to do with your business over the years, I've always been struck by the sort of, a high performance, but also a special culture. There are companies there that sort of exude culture and such. I think you guys do it very, very well. What's been some of the sort of, I guess, solutions that you provided to that problem?
I think we've struggled a little bit like everybody else as
Yeah.
COVID started. The interview process is a little different, completely remote. But one thing we did early on is we had weekly town hall meetings where, we had updates for everybody. We sort of gave everybody a chance to speak. We had people talk about their own experiences. So kind of giving people the opportunity to share, not just in the work or the technology knowledge transfer, but share their own experiences. I think that was a key to really keeping us tight and propagating the culture for the new people that came in.
Definitely. And in terms of you and sort of allowing your team, specific technology team, because I think this is a very different thing from tech teams to sales teams to marketing teams. Everyone's in a slightly different sort of boat as to what people need. Technologists are always wanting to be working on interesting projects, and technologists are always going to want to develop and build their skill sets. Have you managed to do that with your team?
Well, it's a balance. So, you have to both innovate and you also have to maintain and operate systems. Some of that is addressing, technology debt. Everybody incurs some of that when you're moving quickly. But, we have interesting things to work on. I think we've been developing a lot of new, really cool features. The Cloud Hub, that hardware device, it took us quite a while, but that's, I think, been very interesting. Sort of continue to give people challenges too. So for me, it's making sure the mundane work is distributed a little bit and the interesting things are, also distributed a little bit. Obviously we have objectives to meet, so we have to put the right people on the right projects, but there's always opportunity to grow. And I think as you grow, as you grow all people in the team, it sort of lifts the entire company under it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think there's been no shortage of interesting and challenging problems that you guys have been able to give to the team over the course of the last year or so, which is great. We've talked a little bit about the sort of innovation over the last 12 months or so, which has been stunning. And congratulations again to you guys, because I think it's, I love hearing what you guys have done and how nimble you've been. Tell me about the future, because look, things are starting to, and I say this with a big dose of touch wood, but things are starting to settle a little bit. And we're hopeful that with vaccine rollouts going well, both in the UK over here and also with you guys out in the States, that we start to see a semblance of normality coming through. I would be very surprised if you were to tell me that means that the sort of gold rush is over for Cloud9 Technologies. And I know that how ambitious you guys are. What's the next sort of phase for you? As the challenges that customers were seeing before, so in such a pronounced manner, become potentially a little less obvious. What's next for Cloud9 Technologies?
Yeah, I think focus on integrations, focus on workflows. So this means going, beyond the trading floor. Certainly, there's a lot more room for growth in the traditional voice trading, but if you look at the teams that support traders, there's a back office, there's people that do research, there's fulfillment for orders, there's also compliance and other teams that hook into that. So I think bringing all of those together, enabling a product that has the data output, has the accessibility to that data through APIs, meets the security requirements, that extends this well beyond the trading floor. And I think that's where we see a lot of opportunity. It's also on the community side of things. So we have community features, which is our community of traders and firms that are with us. And we are looking to innovate there as well to make counterparty discovery easier, to be able to do things like make recommendations for connections. So those are all things that we're working on now and thinking about, and just more ways to provide seamless access to this data. I think that's what firms are asking for. So APIs, data ingestibility, integration with other desktop applications. I think that's really where the future is, to expand beyond just the trading floor.
Absolutely agree. This community thing is really interesting to me because I think it's done so well, and probably best exemplified in my in my time, looking at what Mark Benioff did with Salesforce.com and how that became a sort of a genuine movement and almost cult in terms of how it developed and grew. What's been the sort of motivation and thought process behind community for you guys?
Well, I think it drives growth, but it also makes our product that much more valuable. When you're able to interact with not just your coworkers or not just the people you regularly do business with, but expand beyond that. I mean, it's the kind of community features that you might find on, LinkedIn or Facebook. I think those types of things really can connect people that maybe you weren't able to connect with before so much, and that's that drives opportunity. It can drive price discovery, and I think it just leads to stickiness of our application, organic growth throughout within firms and throughout financial industry.
Yeah, and that evangelism sort of moves on to become a good tool for you and also beneficial for the people who are utilizing it, which I love that whole area. This is something which I could dig into for hours and hours and hours, and someone who I could just be tapping on for ages. And I know that that's going to be a show which runs out of tape at some sort of stage for it. So I'd love to have you back on and be talking about some of the challenges, and I can't wait to hear the next sort of phase for you as well as what comes next in the whole world of innovation within a business that I think is absolutely personifies that word in itself. People are going to be listening to this and really fascinated about what you said and saying, look, this sounds like some of the problems I'm looking at, and particularly as we look further forward at some of the issues that you're looking to solve ahead of the curve again. Who should be talking to you, and how do they best get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think really anybody that's looking to be nimble in voice trading, anyone that's looking to move their voice data and workloads to the cloud, whether it's for disaster recovery, whether it's to move things off-prem, or just to be able to start putting your toe in there, to be able to start getting access to the kind of data that you can get through a cloud voice solution. So, I would say whether it's tier ones, buy side, I think we're already talking to most of them, but I think that's who should be reaching out to us if they haven't already.
Absolutely. And how best to reach you? Who should they be talking to, and how do they get in touch?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways would be through Barry Purkis, who is our global head of sales based in the UK. Also, Brian Hunt, who you mentioned, has been on the show. I think Brian would be a great person to reach out to, or myself, if you want to discuss the technology or dive deeper into that aspect of it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, David, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing your time, your wisdom. It's a great story that you guys have created over the last year, and I'm glad to hear that we've got more in store as well. So well worthy of the listing, and very excited to hear what you do next and watch the continued multi-award winning growth of a spectacular business. Thanks so much for joining us and spending the time today.
Yeah, thank you as well. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.